When wandering the streets of Amsterdam, it's really hard to understand why every city in the world doesn't look just like this. What's up, guys, and welcome back to A Sense of Travel. I'm Michael Matheny, and I'm on a mission to document the sights, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells of cities, countries, and natural landmarks around the world. This week, I am in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and I am stoked to bring you along.
Amsterdam has long had the reputation of being the countercultural capital of Europe. While not quite your father's Amsterdam, the city still holds on to that countercultural spirit, and you can feel it as you peruse the crooked, whimsical, intricate canals and streets. With nearly 1 million people within its bounds, and over twice that in the metro area, Amsterdam is far more, however, than the Portland, Oregon of the Netherlands. In May of 2023, I had the privilege to travel to the Dutch capital, and I was instantly mesmerized by the rich character of the city. To capture this experience for you, and to immerse you through all 5 senses imaginatively, my goal today is to bring Amsterdam to you by diving into the sights, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells that create the experience in a way that leaves you feeling as if you've strolled along the murky canals too. So, let's dive in. Central Amsterdam, or Centrum, has to be the largest old town I have ever seen. Ringed by medieval canals radiating from the center, the alleyways and streets of tilted Dutch buildings packed narrowly together stretch for ages.
It seems as if there are no bare facades at all in Amsterdam, at least in the center. Every single building seems to have some degree of ornamentalism to it.
Many of the old brick buildings lean at odd angles, with black inserts between them to hold them strong, some protruding forward, others to the left or right. The whimsical nature of the brick buildings, accented in white and topped with rooflines of arches, stepped bricks, and gables, creates an atmosphere right out of a storybook. The aged, tree-lined canals cutting through the medieval streets are filled with a deep, murky brown water. Riverboats and city tours ripple the water, filling the air with a fishy, freshwater scent. Arched bridges, lined with flower pots and planters, cross the dozens of canals at varying points, filled with cyclists, pedestrians, and perhaps the occasional car. Speaking of cars, there are very few of those in Centrum. Instead, the city is filled with cyclists, motorbikes, and pedestrians, leading to the city feeling remarkably quiet. Instead of the massive parking lots you'd find in the United States, Amsterdam's center is filled with small parking decks made exclusively for bikes. As you place yourself imaginatively into Amsterdam's center, imagine the whimsical Dutch buildings lining the deep brown tree-lined canals with ancient domed spires piercing the skyline in clusters. The sense of cigarette smoke, sweet scents from the bakery, and weed accompany the wafts of fishy fresh water and the sounds of street dining, bike bells dinging, and seabirds crying, filling the relatively quiet atmosphere. As you wander about, you notice that Amsterdam's center streets aren't cobbled, but rather paved in brown brick. As you gaze through the shops and markets, you notice dozens of cheese shops, head shops, businesses oriented to the free spirit, your typical chain stores, and an abundance of plant and flower shops. Flower markets are pretty big here.
So here's the thing. You can't visit Amsterdam without visiting the red light district. It's actually really interesting and pretty cool. A lot of boutique shops and things like that. It's funny because I didn't realize I was in the red light district until I turned the corner and I looked up and there was this window with red lights above it and it said room to rent. And there was just this very attractive lady with no clothes on who was gesturing for me to come inside. You know, for her, I can only imagine that the shocked look on my face was pretty comical. Along the streets, you'll see things like the Museum of Sex, the Museum of Prostitution, the Museum of Erotica, sex shows, peep shows, rooms for rent, all that good stuff. And that's just what the red light district is. It's what made it famous. And I should note that out of respect for the privacy and bodily autonomy of the workers in this part of the city, I didn't take any photos or videos of those spaces, so if that's what you were looking for, you're not gonna get it. Sorry. So we're here in Dam Square. It's So this is right at the center in the heartbeat of Amsterdam. This is home to several museums, but most importantly is home to the Dutch Royal Palace, which is right behind me. And that is where we're heading next.
Dam Square is cobbled, flooded with pedestrians and pigeons, and surrounded by large, imposing grey stone buildings. The open square feels bustling, but also slightly governmental, which it is. The palace itself, however, while still quite stately, feels a bit warmer. Completed in 1665, the high-ceilinged galleries of the royal palace interior are largely comprised of ornately carved marble, with deep reds and browns covering the wallpapers in the varying reception and living quarters that surround the cavernous halls. Most of the spaces in the echoing palace have large, extravagant glass chandeliers. The palace smells of cool marble, musty carpets, and faint perfume.
The Rijksmuseum is commonly known as the Museum of the Netherlands. Over 800 years of Dutch history, art, and culture can be found in the building behind me. So, let's go check it out.
Gardens with green hedges, fountains, and statues surround the central museum building, made of old red brick and decorated with inset brick murals and medieval art. Inside the cavernous brick and glass space, you'll find exhibits on medieval Dutch art, the Renaissance, and the Middle Ages, layering each floor of the collection's wing. Within the Dutch collection's exhibit, art and relics paint the story of the Netherlands. The historic library, adjacent to this exhibit, is a gilded, iron masterpiece with every element of a classic ancient library, including a wrought iron spiral staircase, tapestry-like murals on the arched ceilings, and towering rows of old books. It smells of parchment and contains only the subtle sounds of people moving. This museum truly showcases how much of Dutch history revolves around its naval power, and takes responsibility and ownership of the nation's cruel colonial past. Exhibits outside of Dutch cultures, such as the Asian Arts exhibit, add a cosmopolitan feel to the museum. The grounds of the museum and its surrounding structures are huge. Inside the complex is a space reminiscent of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., with dozens of museums and cafés surrounding a central grassy promenade.
Vincent van Gogh is arguably one of the most famous and influential Dutch artists of the age. Here in the same complex as the Rijksmuseum is a museum dedicated to his works. And that's where we're heading next. Let's go check it out.
The four-floor museum features hundreds of Van Gogh's colorful and distinctive pieces, from some of his most famous works like Sunflowers and Potato Eaters, to his more discreet prints and small paintings. The jam-packed museum also includes beautiful works from some of Van Gogh's inspirational artists from his time in Paris, such as Claude Monet, one of my personal favorites.
Although originally from Frankfurt, Germany, Anne Frank hid and was later betrayed at a house here in Amsterdam. Today, the house stands as a museum and a testament to her life and legacy, and the diaries and journal entries that she created towards the end of her life in the Holocaust. And that's where I'm heading next.
I debated including this visit in this blog, and for good reason. This is a heavy, heavy museum. Photos and videos aren't allowed, but they wouldn't be able to capture the gravity of the space and the Frank family's experience in their secret annex hiding space. Nonetheless, it's included because I do believe it's an important element to the Amsterdam story, and something you should visit if you're ever in town. The Netherlands may not exactly be known for its food, but that doesn't mean the Dutch culinary experience doesn't have a few surprises up its sleeve. Here are a few of the classic Dutch dishes that really capture the experience of its capital city. Pannenkoeken. At Café Hans en Griet, I tried pannenkoeken, or Dutch pancakes. As large as a pizza pan, this thin pancake was topped with ham-style bacon and cheese, creating a savory, huge, and delicious meal. Dutch apple pie. My first legit Dutch apple pie was every bit as sweet and warm as you'd expect, with a bowl of whipped cream drizzled in nutmeg and a bready crust. I tried this slice at a cafe and bar called Gasthuis near the city center. Heineken. With the Heineken brewery here in Amsterdam, it's hard to avoid grabbing a pint. A sweet, almost fruity lager, Heineken is crisp and tastes much better and fresher in Amsterdam than anywhere else in the world. Stroopwafel. At Van Holland, near Dam Square, I found perhaps the sweetest treat in the Netherlands, stroopwafel. Stroopwafel is a classic Dutch dessert, and this large, thin, flattened, syrup-filled waffle is doused in melted dark chocolate and covered in dense, sweet chocolate shavings, packing in a heavily sweet punch. Bitterballen. Dutch snacks abound in Amsterdam, and one that really stuck out was bitterballen. Little fried balls of beef stew that were refrigerated until thickened, these crunchy, pot pie flavor reminiscent little guys were found at the restaurant and bar attached to Hotel Prins Hendrik near the Central Station. At René's Croissants near Dam Square, I dug into a sweet Dutch breakfast delicacy, poffertjes. Miniature pancakes soaked in maple syrup, dusted in powdered sugar, and served alongside a delicious coffee, poffertjes may be my new favorite form of pancakes. Oerlog French fries. Found at a small fry shop called Velmenix Sausmeesters are oerlog patates. Fried much in the same way as the Belgians, once in hot grease and again in an even hotter grease, this Dutch-style cone of fries was topped with a thick Thai peanut sauce, mayonnaise, and onions. The metro system here in Amsterdam is quite clean, seems pretty reliable, and appears to be mostly above ground, which makes sense given that Amsterdam itself is 2 meters below sea level. The stations themselves are huge and quite spacious and are each uniquely designed. For example, the one near where I stayed had wood-paneled ceilings tapered into V-shapes. One final thing I want to note that I absolutely loved about Amsterdam is Vondelpark. Just outside Centrum, this massive expanse of lush, green lawns, large old trees, flowering bushes, bronze statues, picnickers, cyclists, and lily-pad layered ponds is the perfect urban oasis. All you hear are birds chirping, footsteps on gravel, bicycles on pavement, and light chatter. The air smells earthy and green with occasional puffs of weed from those chilling on the lawn, and the warm sun creates an air of serenity. Surrounding the park are elegant cafes and gable-roofed homes. Amsterdam has very quickly become one of my favorite European cities. While my adventure here was solo, it's the kind of place that I want to return to with family and friends to share the experience I had with them in person. I do hope, however, that through diving in with me immersively through the sights, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells of the city, you were able to place yourself imaginatively into the famous Dutch capital and feel yourself trotting along on the narrow alleyways, tasting the sweet flavors of poffertjes, and soaking in the bliss of this quiet, whimsical, and proudly unique city too. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.